Hello everyone, this is a channel about engines. Today we're going to take things apart. This engine here is a Korean made engine by the company DOOSAN, and it was taken out of a machine like this. And it has the following technical specifications. This is the second Korean engine. On my channel, the first one was the DE12T, which was an analog of the Maschinenfabrik Augsburg-Nürnberg engine. But this one is from the company DOOSAN. I haven't worked on this kind of engine yet, but basically it's just a regular diesel engine with a mechanical throttle and a fuel pump. So this engine belongs to my subscriber from Tyumen. He already took it apart on site, meaning he removed this cylinder head. So we can see the first, second and third cylinders. There are no fuel lines, some other parts are missing. There's no jumper, no intake manifold, no turbo, and so on. All of that is already over there on my shelf. So what happened to this engine? What problems does it have? Here we see the piston from this engine, in what condition it is, and also the cylinder liner from this engine. The piston got welded to the liner is a dry type, and the liner broke off. So maybe the engine overheated. The piston started to weld to the liner, or maybe there were problems with the oil nozzle or oil supply. Well, we won't guess right now. We'll take it apart and see. My task, first of all, is to check the condition of the block. According to the customer, the seat for the liner was damaged on push. So we'll see if it's possible to install a new liner there or not, or if some kind of repair liner is needed. So our first and main task is to inspect the block for defects and figure out what we can do with it. As usual, we check everything else. There's the crankshaft bearings, camshaft pistons. We'll be installing new ones, and the cylinder head inspection, fuel system repair. The turbo will go for testing. So everything is standard, just like usual. I'm starting the disassembly. First, as usual, we remove the pipes, then the intake manifold, valve cover, cylinder head, the alternator, and so on. Then we check the timing mark. We need to understand how the fuel pump is installed, set the marks, and then remove it. Here's the pump. We remove it from the front. Then the pulley, compressor. There's also the starter installed. We remove the clutch. I take off the clutch cover, turn the engine over, and then take out the crankshaft and camshaft. So I've removed the cylinder heads, and we can see that the second sleeve is pulled out, and we can also see that the block is damaged. I'm not sure, but there might even be a crack here. Or, well, I don't know, we'll take it apart and check, but it doesn't look good here. I think there's a crack starting here, and it goes all the way across the block. But again, the customer said there was no antifreeze in the oil pan, so I don't know. Even if there is a crack, it doesn't reach the water jacket. Well, in general, nothing good so far. And also you can see on the other liners that there's a crack in this spot as well. And there's also a crack here. There's a crack on the third cylinder, meaning it was the second cylinder that really got damaged, but all of them suffered. Here you can see what a big crack it is. So this could have happened because of engine overheating. I think there was some serious overheating. Alright, I'm taking the engine apart completely here, maybe cleaning and washing it, and then we'll draw some conclusions. Next, I'll remove the fuel pump. Here I see there's a hatch. There should be a mark on the cover. Here's an arrow, and there should be some kind of slot or drilling here. I'm unscrewing it, aligning the marks, checking the pump to see if the mark matches or not. If it doesn't, I turn it one more revolution, basically until some kind of mark shows up. Then I remove the pump. Also take off this coolant cover along the way. Remove the oil filter housing here, and then I'll turn the engine over and remove the oil pan. So, I saw a degree scale on the flywheel, and I've set it to 0 using this notch here. One side goes into the plus E, and the other side goes into the minus, but the scale is really small here. Just 2, 4, E, and in the opposite direction. No, in the opposite direction it goes up to 20. So I'm setting it to 0. Here's 0T, E. And we look at the mark on the pump, so we see that when the piston is at top dead center, this is what happens. The marks are misaligned by about 7 or 8 millimeters. So I turn it until the marks line up and check how many degrees I have on the flywheel. So, my marks have lined up. We look at the flywheel and see that we have 12 degrees. That is, the injection occurs 12 degrees before top dead center. Well, it's about the same on the Manowski engine. Let's say it's 14 degrees there. Here we have 12, give or take. So now I'm making a mark that the pump is set at 12 degrees, and then we'll remove the pump. So I removed the oil pan and we can see it's full of shavings. Here we have pieces of the cylinder liner, and over there I see piston rings. Here's the oil scraper ring, but the engine kept running with the knock for some time. It wasn't shut off right away. Alright, we can see the relief valve is installed on the pump. So, to get to it, you need to remove the oil pan. And it's built right into the pump housing itself. We'll definitely open it up and take a look, and we'll also open up the pump and check it out. Well, here it is. I'm turning it and the pump is sticking, so apparently some metal shavings got in there. That means the housing is already aluminum, so there are already scratches inside. Most likely we'll need a new pump. It was hard to remove. This holds the oil seal. The seal here consists of two parts, and this part fits tightly onto the shaft. I'm not sure why these oil seals are needed. I don't like them or understand their purpose. I think the design of Mercedes and Maschinenfabrik Augsburg Nuremberg is the most perfect one there is. There are no problems with a replaceable running ring. Here you can see how I removed it and how much effort it took. And installing these seals isn't that great either. Like this. So according to the timing marks, the crankshaft yaw mark is on the crankshaft. The camshaft mark is on the camshaft. 1 here, 0 here, 1 here. And here it turns out was 2 bullet lock. This is the fuel pump drive. So during assembly, you first need to install this cover lock. Then the gear to align these double marks, bullet lock. So first this cover is installed. Then this cover, and then the oil pan is installed along with the intermediate gear. Here 0 is for the crankshaft, One is for the camshaft and 2 is for the fuel pump. I won't mark the timing mark since it's already clear. Now I'm removing the intermediate gear. Then this gear, apparently, I need to remove the camshaft gear. Then I unscrew a few more bolts, remove this intermediate plate, and then take out the camshaft. No, first I guess I remove the rear cover, then take out the pistons, remove the crankshaft, and then probably we'll get to the camshaft. Well, here we also have an intermediate gear for the oil pump drive. Here we have the compressor drive, and also the pump drive comes from the compressor. And also I think somewhere here is the power steering drive. I think I unscrewed it around this spot. So it turns out we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 gears. Well, out of them, as usual, only 3 are set by marks. 2, 3. And this is the intermediate one. All the marks are set according to it. Why does this cover come off so badly? We can see there are these two guides here, and they're very long and very thin, so you can't really apply much force here. This guide, it moves a bit, and as a result it sits very tightly, so you have to gradually work it off here and there. Even if I move it with my hand, they start to shift. That's why it's my first time seeing this. I took out the casings, and what I want to say is that there are cracks on all the casings except, I think, the 6th cylinder, or maybe the 1st or the 6th. Basically, the end cylinder. There are cracks on all the casings, and you can see that the cracks have been there for a long time. On this casing, for example, there's a longitudinal crack. You can see it right here, and where the crack is, it's already dry, meaning you can see there's oil nearby. Where the crack is, it's already dry. Gas was leaking from the casing here, and oil was burning off. This is happening on all casings to varying degrees. So the customer complained about the pressure, meaning when you started, the pressure didn't rise right away, so the warning light was on, but judging by the bearings, the pressure was actually pretty decent. There are some scuff marks, but I believe they're from when the engine started knocking and metal shavings entered the system. As I showed earlier, the oil pump jams up with shavings inside, etc. I think this already happened after the cylinder liner broke apart. Judging by these bearings, they're in perfectly working condition, meaning there are no scuff marks on the bearings. There's no sign of oil starvation. Further, about overheating, I thought the engine was overheated, but judging by all the other pistons, there's no sign of overheating. When the engine is overheated, scoring starts to appear, the skirt starts to weld to the cylinder liner, aluminum to cast iron, and you can see it. There should be at least some traces on every piston. It can't be that just one cylinder, let's say, overheated so much that its liner got welded, while all the other cylinders are more or less in working condition. So, for now, I don't have any specific ideas about what caused these cracks. As an option, I just don't know. It's a feature of this engine, a feature of these sleeves. Maybe it's just due to time. I haven't found the reason. Or I also thought maybe the rings are worn out. Maybe the oil control ring. Oil gets into the cylinder, the oil burns, and because of overheating, cracks appeared, but the rings are actually in working condition. Here, even if you measure it, I think the gap will be around 1 mm, which is quite acceptable for a working engine. So for now, I don't have an explanation for why these cracks appeared. So basically, I'll need to think about it, look up information on the internet, maybe in some literature. Next, I unscrew the main caps, take out the crankshaft. The camshaft has already fallen out. I unscrewed the thrust washer here, and it just fell out on its own. The lifters are removed from inside, just like on Mercedes or Maschinenfabrik Augsburg Nürnberg. First you remove the camshaft, then the lifters. Basically, I'm removing the shafts. Well, that's probably enough for today. Tomorrow, I'll wash the engine, and the day after tomorrow, it will go to the machinists. We'll see what verdict they give, what the machinists will say. In my view, a repair sleeve is essential here. Actually, we have two options. Either we machine the seat for the sleeve and install a sleeve with thicker walls and a larger diameter, or we'll have to replace the block. Because, well, I don't know, at least that's what I'm thinking for now. If we take a standard sized sleeve, remove the scoring here a little, and install this sleeve, well, it will already be an experiment like that. Let's say, how long will it last? In my opinion, such a repair won't last long, and soon this sleeve will either crack again or get pulled out. These are just my initial thoughts. Whatever comes to mind, I'm saying directly to the camera. Later on, there might be some adjustments. So I took the engine apart, and to sum up, the crankshaft and camshaft are in excellent condition. I don't think there will be any questions about them. Yeah, there definitely won't be any questions. They're just in perfect condition, like new. The piston assembly, including pistons, sleeves and rings, needs replacement. As for the bushings, I don't know yet. It seems like maybe they don't even need to be replaced, but I'll take it apart later and check. The bearings obviously all need to be replaced. We take apart the cylinder heads, check the condition of the valve guides and valve seats. Possibly replace the guides, lap them, replace the valve stem seals, and maybe also send the heads for surface grinding. A new oil pump is definitely needed here. Inside, I'm unsure if this is a pressure relief valve or simply a check valve to stop oil from draining back, because there was another valve in the engine block itself. Here I unscrewed it. This is our pressure relief valve, 100, which means it releases excess pressure. I checked it. Basically there are no complaints about it, but later on we'll take it apart and have a look at it too. For the clutch, I would recommend replacing the clutch disc because it's already worn out. As for the pressure plate, if the customer hasn't had any problems with the clutch, then just the pressure plate, we're keeping the flywheel, just replacing the disc and the flywheel bearing. Okay, the fuel equipment will go for repair, first for inspection and then possibly for repair. We'll also remove the disc and send it for inspection, and based on the inspection results we'll decide what to do with it. Well, I'll take apart the compressor. At the very least we'll replace the piston rings and one set of valve gaskets. Now here's the most important thing about the block. As I mentioned and explained earlier, I cleaned it up a bit and took a look. The cylinder head mating surface is basically about a 4 out of 5. The main problem with this engine is the seating for the second cylinder, the sleeve of the second cylinder. I don't have a solution yet. I don't have any options yet, so I won't say anything for now. Let's see what decisions will be made. I'm starting to assemble the engine. So the engine block is still undergoing finishing work. Some parts have already been purchased, some we're still waiting for, and some are on the way. So right now I'm working on the cylinder heads. The heads have already been on the surface grinding machine. As we can see, the surface is leveled. We removed 0.066 from this head and 0.076 from this one. So I'm lapping the valves. The valves are set in place. We're keeping the old ones in their original positions. Each valve is marked by me for its spot. I'm lapping them, making the seat a bit narrower, so there are no major problems with the heads like this. That's what I mean. The guide bushings aren't worn out. We can see the condition of the guide bushings. There's practically no play at all here. The only thing I did was on the second cylinder, where the sleeve broke and so on. I made a chamfer on the laddy, 45 degrees on the exhaust valve, 30 degrees on the intake valve, and then lapped them in place as well. So the valves are all good. The valves don't need to be replaced. This head, the first, second, and third cylinders are already done. The valves are lapped. You can see each valve has this kind of mark, the track from the seat. And the seats themselves look like this on the fourth, fifth, and sixth cylinders. Now I'm going to lap some more valves. My valves are in this condition, as you can see. And also, you can see on the seat that it hasn't been lapped yet. So, I'm lapping this head right now. Next, there's already a complete set of gaskets for this engine. The set should include valve seals, so I take out the seals, assemble the heads, and set them aside for now. Oh, and one more thing. I'll also mention that the heads were pressure tested, meaning they were pressure tested first and then sent to the grinding machine. Also, for example, the turbocharger will be checked, and the fuel equipment is also being checked. The turbocharger is already on the shelf, packed in cellophane, polyethylene, and the manifolds, the exhaust ones, are already cleaned as well. I cleaned them in the sandblasting chamber and removed the old seals, so I've already done a lot today. After assembling the cylinder heads, I want to install the turbocharger on the manifold and maybe paint the manifolds as well, so that everything is ready and the manifolds are prepared for installation. I want to remind you about my channel on Boosty. The link is in the description under this video. So what bonuses are there for Boosty subscribers? But there are several levels there. If you're interested, you can go check it out and get familiar with it. But I'll list them briefly. So first of all, people often comment asking why I don't show myself on video. On Boosty, there are videos where I show myself, where you can see my face. Well, if you're interested, the link is in the description. You can go and check it out. So in the future, I plan to do live streams, either about engine repair or about starting the engine after repairs, which I think would be very interesting. There's also an option to feature your photos in my videos. Today, by the way, the first photo will be at the end of the video. It's from my subscriber on Boosty. And at the end of the video, I'll also list all my subscribers from the Boosty channel. There aren't that many of them yet, so you could say these are some of the first ones. And you'll just be helping me out, introducing the channel in video creation, meaning that videos are regularly released on YouTube. And so that videos are regularly released on other platforms as well, because I had a break, and now after the break, it seems like I actually want to get back to doing all this. I will also publish the list of donors once a month, either at the end of the month or the start of the next. At the end of the video, as usual, there will be a list of everyone who donated this month. And I also made a small announcement about the repair of the MZ513 V-type carburetor engine from the bus. So there will be a video on the channel soon. It will come out on Boosty first, but then on all other platforms. Earlier I prepared some footage. The connecting rods will go for machining, the seating for the rod bearings will be checked, and the piston pin bushings will be replaced. Next, I'm disassembling the cylinder heads. So about the heads, there are some details. We can see that there are two heads for the engine, each with 3 cast iron cylinders. I took out the injectors and also unscrewed the studs that hold the injectors in place. There were some other studs here as well. Well, that's because the heads are going to be machined. We need to lay them flat. So, as for the valves, they seem to be in good condition. Maybe we'll have to machine the working edge somewhere on a lathe. But overall, the guides are in good condition. There's practically no play. And the valves themselves are also in excellent condition. There will be a bit of work on the cylinder heads, meaning they need to be cleaned and sent for flat grinding and guide bushings. I won't replace them. I won't replace the valves. I'll just clean everything. Each valve is marked, as you can see. First cylinder exhaust valve, first cylinder intake valve. So I'll clean them, maybe make the seats a bit narrower as usual, and lap each valve in place. So the valve stem seals need to be replaced. They're already hard and stiff, that's obvious. There's another detail to consider. Valves, springs, we can see there's a mark marked in red where the top of each spring is. The red mark means it's facing up towards the valve retainer. And also another detail, what does hydro mean? The intake valve has a single spring, while the exhaust valve has a double spring. That is a thick one with a thin one inside. We can also see double, single, double, single. Well, on a Mercedes, how is it done? On a Mercedes, the exhaust valve spring is longer. On a Mercedes or a Maschinen Fabrik Augsburg, Nuremberg, for example, the intake spring is shorter and the exhaust spring is longer. Here we see the springs are the same, but the exhaust valve has an additional spring. So now I'm disassembling the second head. These are our fourth, fifth, and sixth cylinders. I'm cleaning them and then we send the heads to the surface grinding machine. I also noticed that there are copper sleeves, little cups, under the injectors. Maybe these sleeves will need to be replaced, but I don't know yet. We'll see later. And I think we definitely need to take the heads for pressure testing. I don't have the ability to do pressure testing in my workshop for these kinds of heads. I'll check with the customer about the pressure testing, but most likely the heads will also go for pressure testing. I've prepared everything that will go to third-party organizations. The turbocharger will go for inspection, the heads for surface grinding and possibly pressure testing, and then the fuel equipment for inspection, the pump and injectors. I've washed and cleaned everything. This is how the injectors look before sending them off. We'll see how they look after the fuel specialists are done with them. Usually, they all arrive covered in some kind of sand, sludge, diesel fuel, oil, and so on. And here I have the connecting rods, also for checking the bearing seats, connecting rods, bearings, and for replacing the piston pin bushing. So the engine block is still undergoing maintenance and is still unclear when it will be ready. This is the radiator from the heat exchanger. I need to clean it now as well. The heat exchanger housing is already ready. Now I want to disassemble the compressor. For the compressor, we'll also do an inspection. At the very least, we'll replace the piston rings, gaskets, valves, and we'll check if there are bearings in this compressor or not. So basically, we're taking it apart, doing a full inspection, and also ordering spare parts. Basically, the cylinder is in excellent condition. I think we'll replace the piston rings, gaskets, and add them. So, well, the bearings need to be replaced. We can see there's some wear, some minor scratches, maybe also something with the oil. Some pieces got in here. Well, the liner broke apart over there. So all these shavings and pieces got onto this bearing with the oil. We can see there are scratches, but we'll replace the bearings. As for the rest, everything is basically in good condition, and the crankshaft is also in excellent condition. So I'm continuing with the prep work. I was working on the compressor basically off camera. As I showed, I took it apart. So what I did was replace the piston rings. The bearings will be replaced and also the gaskets and seals. The bearings aren't here yet. They'll only arrive in a few days. I decided to assemble it as much as possible like this. For now, I'm putting it aside, and when the bearings arrive, I just need to install them and mount the cylinder onto the housing. Here I have everything ready. I washed and cleaned all the bolts. I degreased them, blew them out, all the rings, put the piston in the cylinder. I cleaned the valve plate here as well, put in new gaskets and tightened everything a bit. Later I'll tighten it again in place. So basically that's it for the compressor. For now I'm putting all this on the shelf and throwing this away as trash. And the block has already arrived. They unloaded it literally 10 minutes ago. So I'll tell you later what was done. But for now I'll just show you what we see in this spot. The second cylinder where we had the problem. A sleeve has been installed, meaning it's non-removable and pressed in. Well, I'll explain everything in more detail later. Right now my task is to prepare the block. Clean the channels, wash it again. It's all covered in diesel, really greasy. So I'll wash it again, degrease it, blow it out, clean the channels, and then I'll start assembling. As usual, I'll start with installing the camshaft and the crankshaft, which are already prepared. So I've prepared the block, washed it again in diesel and in the washer, blew out the channels several times, washed and cleaned them. Everything's done here. Well, in general, I spent a few hours working on the block, and now the block is ready, so I'm starting the assembly. So I've prepared the camshaft. We're keeping the old one. There are no issues with it. It's in perfect condition. I've also prepared the lifters. We're keeping the old ones as well. And there are no issues with them either. Everything is in perfect condition. I've also prepared the oil nozzles. As we remember, 5 of them are in good condition and one was broken, specifically on the second cylinder where the liner was damaged. So we have one new nozzle. I've prepared the bolts here, checked all these nozzles and made sure they're working properly. Here we have a valve E, there's a spring and the valve inside. When you supply air here, the valve opens and oil flows into this hole, like this. I'm installing the oil nozzles, push rods, camshaft, then the cylinder head and so on. I installed the cylinder head, tightened it with a power tool for a preliminary fit, then torqued it down properly at 250 Newton meters. That's about 25 kilograms. This is how it turns right now, according to the manual. Here, we need to tighten the main bolts, the bolts securing the main caps, with a force of 30 kilograms. That's 300 Newton meters without an additional 90-degree turn. I've already tightened 25. Now I'm setting the wrench to 30, tightening all the bolts and just marking them with a marker for myself. So I know these bolts are already tightened and I don't have to go back to them. So I'm tightening the bolts, and then I'll probably install the front cover, put the gears on the camshaft, the intermediate gear, basically set the timing marks, and then I'll probably install the rear cover. I haven't cleaned it yet. Here's the last uncleaned engine part. I'll install the rear cover and flywheel. I want to add the pistons and connecting rods, but I still have the connecting rods left. The machinists are replacing the bushings. There were some minor issues with the bushings. At first, the wrong ones arrived, so they had to be replaced. Basically, we were waiting for the right bushings to come in. We'll wait for the machinist to finish. So I don't have the connecting rods yet. So for now, I'll assemble what I can, like the front and back. And then when the connecting rods arrive, I'll install the pistons. So we removed 0.17 millimeters from the cylinder block's head mating surface, and I think I still need pistons. Also, I'll shorten each piston by the same 0.2 millimeters key. So now I'll install the front cover, the rear cover key, and then I'll work on the pistons. I'll trim each one, take and make them 0.2 millimeters shorter. All right, so we'll continue with this amount of work. So I've installed the crankshaft and the intermediate gear for the oil pump drive. And here I've installed the camshaft gear and the bolts. I used thread locker on them. I also put the thrust washer on thread locker, and here I installed the fuel pump drive gear, which is secured in place. On this side, two bolts are tightened, and one is just in place for now, in new. The other side also has 2 bolts, temporarily holding things together. So now I just have to install the timing intermediate gear, and all the timing marks should line up. So on the crankshaft gear we see a dot, on the camshaft there's a 1, and on the pump drive gear there's a 2. So now I'm aligning all 3 of these marks. Well, basically that's it, and I can close up this front cover. The timing marks are set. So here we have the gear. We see that 0 is for the crankshaft, 1 is for the camshaft, and 2 is for the fuel pump. The bushing is fine, and the teeth are in great condition. I've prepared the bolts, prepared the washer. This is how it holds the gear. I've also already prepared the front cover. I replaced the oil seal here. As we remember during disassembly, we had a 2-piece oil seal, but now the kit comes with a regular oil seal with a spring. I've installed it here. We have a new gasket, and now I'll prepare the bolts. All the marks match 0 with the dot, 1 with the 1s, and 2 with the 2s. Let's continue. Alright, next I'll be installing the sleeves, pistons and so on. We're already here. So as for the sleeves, we also gave them to the machinists. They machined this seating area for the sleeve so that the sleeve would have a protrusion. I haven't checked the manuals yet, but I think it should be 300s. And the sleeves they pressed in and installed, the non-removable ones, that's how it turned out. They also made a 300s protrusion. As for the pistons, they removed 1700s from the block at the cylinder head mating surface. Well, roughly speaking, 2/10. So now I'm going to remove the same 2/10 from the bottom of each piston. I've already done one piston. This is how it looks. Now I'll show you how I did it using one of the cylinders as an example. Basically, I've already shown this in my videos more than once. So I make the mandrel from a sleeve. I took an old sleeve, cut it to the height of the piston, and then made a cut with an angle grinder so it can compress. Then I clamp it in the lathe. I align this surface using a dial indicator to make sure there's no runout. It ends up being somewhere between 0 and 300ths of a millimeter, which is within the acceptable range. So I align this surface using a dial indicator. Then I bring the cutter close and make contact. After that, I set up my dial indicator again and use it to move the cutter by 1/10 of a millimeter. My machine is already old and worn out, so it's impossible to set it to 1/10 of a millimeter precisely. But with the dial indicator, it's no problem at all. Next, I move the cutter by 1/10 of a millimeter, make the cut, and then take control measurements from the top compression ring to the bottom of the piston. Then I move it again, remove about 8, 9 or 10 hundredths of a millimeter, and that's it. 2 passes, I remove 2/10 of a millimeter, and that's all. So I'm showing this with one piston as an example, but I machined the rest without the camera. So I'm machining the pistons. Next, I install the sleeves, then the connecting rods. I put the pistons onto the connecting rods, also install new rings, put on the piston rings, new bearings in the connecting rods, and then I install the pistons with the connecting rods into the block. I'm not sure how long this will take me. In theory, today is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so in theory it should take 4 days. I'd like to finish the engine completely, but I don't know how it'll turn out. I still don't have the fuel equipment. It's still being repaired by the fuel specialists. As usual, we won't make predictions, but we'll try to finish as quickly as possible. And from the moment the unit arrived after the shutdown work, we're on the 3rd day now. So I've machined all the pistons and now we're weighing them. 175 to 172 to 175. I'm rounding there to 173 to 172.70. 174. Well, the difference in the weight of the pistons is literally 3 grams. That is, you could say, ideally, it's some tenths of a percent, if not even hundredths of a percent. Next, I install the pistons onto the connecting rods, and then we put on the piston rings. I installed and tightened the pistons. I can't recall what I showed on camera or not. Since the sleeve is installed by hand, I made these temporary supports here so the sleeve doesn't pop out. Moving on, I installed the flywheel housing, tightened it, put the flywheel on the housing, and also installed the mounts. We're keeping the old mounts. I just cleaned them, sandblasted the bolts, and used thread locker. So there's a new seal in the housing and a new flywheel bearing in the flywheel. Everything is tightened. The housing is centered using these bolts, 2 bolts on the edges, since there are no guide pins on the block itself. These 2 bolts act as guides and also secure the housing with a nut. So the housing is tightened and the flywheel is tightened. Next, I'll be closing the oil pan. I've prepared the intermediate plate, the oil pan itself, and the gaskets here, the gaskets for the pickups themselves, the bolts and mounts. So here we have the drain plug, a new washer and a new plug, and also a new oil pump. So I'm installing the pump, installing the intermediate plate, closing the oil pan, and then we'll be installing the cylinder heads. Now about the cylinder heads. There's also a small problem with the guide that was in the block. I didn't remove them, I just sent the block for machining, and when they were removing them there, well, after the machinist worked on it, they became unusable. So now I need to figure out what to make the guides from. I don't know. As an option, I usually use a drill bit. You can cut the drill bit with an angle grinder and choose the right diameter. Well, or maybe some kind of tube. So it will also take some time now to find the right guides. Well, basically I install the heads, and after that there will be just a little left to do. So that's the amount of work we have left. Let's continue. tightened it and put in a new plug as I showed. And I think I also showed that the oil pan here is attached with these plates, aluminum rails. So the pan itself is just sheet metal. But to keep it from deforming, there's this kind of rail. The pan may be sheet metal, but it doesn't get deformed. This bar holds it very well, so I tighten the oil pan. Next, I'll install the oil filter housing, and I'll also install the heat exchanger. Well, while the engine is lying here, everything is convenient for now. I could also install the fuel pump, but I'll only have it tomorrow. Right now, it's still with the fuel specialists. I'll install the pump later, but basically that's everything on this side. The heat exchanger is ready. I think I showed how I made it, meaning I washed the casing, cleaned it in the sandblasting chamber, blew out the radiator, and also washed the inside with diesel and a special solvent. In general, I did all the work on it too. And it's ready for installation on the oil filter housing. That means the window is also cleaned. Now, I also decided to open the valve. Here we have a bypass valve, which is in case the oil filter gets so clogged that oil can't pass through it. If the resistance becomes greater than what the spring pushes, there is a small spring like this, then the bypass valve opens and the oil goes through the system bypassing the filter. Here, I also want to show an interesting point. Instead of a valve, there is just a ball like this. It is simply installed like this and held in place by a spring. And then the spring, and then it's screwed in just like that with this kind of plug. That's it. So I tighten the valve and install the oil filter housing. Alright, that's it. I'm installing the cylinder heads. I turned the engine so I could put the hoist heads on. So, I installed the guides, made them from stainless steel tubing, which is exactly 6 mm in diameter. So, I installed the gaskets from the set. As we can see, there's a difference between the gaskets. They are not interchangeable. So, here's the oil channel for lubricating the rocker, arm shafts. one for one cylinder head and one for the other. That means the gasket is right and left and you can't swap them. That's it. So first I install the cylinder head for the first, second and third cylinders, then for the fourth, fifth and sixth. We tighten them, and tomorrow I'll move on to the valves, injectors and so on. Alright, so I installed the heads, tied them with a socket, torqued them to 245 Newton meters, then turned them another 90 degrees. I set my range to 250 and tightened each one until it clicked several times. Well, because the head is large, when you tighten the middle ones, by the time you get to the outer ones, the gasket compresses a bit and the middle ones loosen up. So about 3 or 4 times. I tightened them all in order. So all the bolts are tightened. I didn't mark them this time, since I didn't use a torque wrench, so no marks this time. So next I install the push rods, rocker arms, adjust the valves and push rods, and then, I don't know, I'll close the valve cover. Yeah, basically at this point you can already start closing everything up, installing the intake manifold, air manifold, exhaust manifold and so on adds. But I still don't have the injectors, so I don't know. I'll see what I can do here, what I can work on. I installed and tightened the rocker arm, then adjusted the valves following this procedure. So here we have the cylinder numbering starting from the flywheel, just like on our French engines. The numbering also starts from the flywheel, and on this engine the numbering also starts from the flywheel. But basically the adjustment is done exactly the same way as on the Mercedes. on a Machine Fabric Augsburg Nürnberg 6-cylinder or on a Volvo 6-cylinder, for example. So we adjust the first, second, third, skip the fourth and fifth, adjust the sixth and seventh, skip the eighth and ninth, adjust the 10th, and then make a full 360-degree turn and adjust the remaining valves. So we set the clearance to 0.3 millimeters for both the intake and exhaust valves. That means the valves are adjusted. Now I'll install the studs that hold the injectors. Then I'll probably close the valve cover here. The injectors are fastened with these kinds of studs. I unscrew them when repairing the cylinder heads. Basically, I'm putting everything back in place here. Everything I removed from the heads. And I'm waiting for the injectors, waiting for the pump, so I can finally finish assembling the engine. Here's how my engine looks now. Yesterday evening I painted it, and as usual, near the end of assembly, I record less because I just want to finish it as soon as possible. I did some work here off camera. I don't remember what I showed and what I didn't. Like the manifold. I think I installed the pipes and so on. So I set the pump to 12 degrees, just like it was during disassembly. If you look closely, you can see I drew and scratched in 12 degrees. And here we see the mark lined up on the flywheel. There's also a scale there. We set it to 12 degrees. The first cylinder is a top dead center compression stroke, and here our marks should line up. So now I'm removing this tape where I put it here, which areas didn't need to be painted. Next, I'll install the clutch. The clutch disc is new. The clutch basket is old. Also yesterday evening, I machined the primary shaft yesterday evening. I had a mandrel here, but it didn't fit, so I made a groove on the other side like this and did it fit into the bearing. I also checked the run out of the disc, so I installed the disc, installed the clutch basket, and removed the tape. I also need to install the exhaust manifold with the turbocharger here. These intake manifolds are just put on for now, they're not fixed yet. I'm going to paint them, and at the same time I'm installing the turbocharger with the exhaust manifold and putting on these two manifolds. Then I pour in the oil, connect the batteries, and by this evening I should be able to start it up, and probably I'll pack everything up today as well. So that's the amount of work we have. Let's get started. So before installing the manifold, you need to assemble it completely because we have studs here and you can't insert this part. The studs get in the way. So I installed new sealing rings here. Basically, these are piston rings of a certain diameter, the same kind of cast iron ones. The old ones were here before. Well, they were basically stuck and rusted in place. There was rust and I couldn't get them out. I had to knock them out with a chisel. Then I cleaned the grooves, installed new rings, sprayed them with special ceramic paste, and now we're installing the ring. You also need to be careful so it compresses properly. That's it, the engine is running, everything is good, everything works smoothly. Well, when you rev it a bit, there's some black smoke, but that's normal for us. The turbo is idling. So the engine acts like it's naturally aspirated. The air intake matches that. But fuel is still supplied as if it's turbocharged, because our turbo isn't connected. So at idle, the pressure shows about 5. Well, around 4 to 4. 5 at idle. When you rev it, the pressure goes up to 7, 5 up to 8. Well, that's when the valve kicks in, of course. The pressure is a bit lower than on a Mercedes. On a Mercedes, it immediately pushes 6 or 7 when it's hot. Normal idle pressure is about 1.5 to 2 atmospheres at first. I poured in about 17 liters of oil, then started it up for the first time. Checked it, turned it off, checked again. The level was near the lower mark. Well, here we have a big filter, plus the whole system is empty. There's a heat exchanger and so on. So I added more oil. It turned out to be about 20 liters of oil. That's what else I can say. And the first shots were about starting it up. I started to launch it and saw that the batteries were turning weakly. I mean, it was getting worse and worse. So I wouldn't have to bleed the system here. Unscrew these pipes and get the air out. I basically started it with a quick start, just giving it a little bit at a time, and it slowly caught on. And in this way, the injectors, the pipes and the injectors quickly got rid of the air. And the second start was already without the quick start, so it started up. It starts, you don't even need to hold it. The throttle works smoothly and steadily. Although here I have just about 5 millimeters, it's held up by a support both on this side and on that side. Our platform is at a 45-degree angle, so it's just 5 millimeters. Anything could happen. If it slipped, I left it on chains so it would hang in the air. Alright? So now I'm removing the batteries, disconnecting the diesel. What else? Disconnecting the diesel. And then I'll start packing it up. Now I'll send the client a photo and video report on the engine's work. And that's it. I'll pack it up, put it on a pallet, wrap it and pack it in stretch film. And tomorrow or the day after, I think the client will come and pick it up. The client brought it himself from Tyumen, and he also wants to take it back on his own. So the repair of this engine costs this amount. This is my work, machining work, everything including the fuel system repair, turbine inspection and so on, parts, everything. So I'll be wrapping up this video about the repair of this engine.